It is easy for us to believe that 2020 was one of the worst years in human history. We lived through a devastating pandemic, the deaths of millions, and a major economic recession. However, there have been many worse years. The volcanic winter of 536 AD was one of them. Can you imagine the sun disappearing for 18 months straight? A thick, impenetrable fog covering the greater part of 3 continents? A lack of shadows all around on account of the feeble light? This was exactly what many people, across Eurasia and North Africa experienced during 536 AD, habitually dubbed as the worst time to be alive, ever. A winter without storms, a spring without mildness, and a summer without heat. The volcanic winter of 536. A mysterious fog plunged Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia into darkness, day and night, for 18 months. For the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during the whole year. Temperatures in the summer of 536 fell 1.5 degrees Celsius to 2.5 degrees Celsius, initiating the coldest decade in the past 2,300 years. As it happened, 536 was a time of unusual volcanic activity. Scientists found significant sulfate deposits and layers of ice dating back to this period. Several culprits stand accused: the Krakatoa, in modern Indonesia, Rabaul in Papua New Guinea, or other volcanoes in North America or Iceland. It's beyond possible that, instead of one, a combination of these volcanoes erupted in or near 536. Snow, frost, and famine. The ash cloud obscuring the sun had immediate consequences on living conditions everywhere. Early medieval economies relied heavily on sustenance agriculture, smaller-scale farms to provide for a couple of families, at most. In most civilizations at the time, there was a lack of large storage facilities for food. People produced their immediate necessities and little else. This economic order was highly vulnerable to catastrophes such as the 536 volcano eruption. For starters, summer temperatures dropped by up to 2.5 degrees Celsius, starting the coldest decade of the past 2 millennia. If 2.5 degrees doesn't sound like a whole lot, recall how our modern governments are struggling to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. Contemporaries describe the near-instant, global cooling of 536 as seasons jumbled up together. Snow fell in August in China. Droughts hit Peru in full force. Ireland fell into immediate famine. Frost set in during harvest season, causing the apples to go sour. Soon after, widespread crop failure deprived many families of food. A failure of bread is a common remark in many annals covering these years. The medieval, Little Ice Age. As if one volcanic eruption wasn't enough, more took place over the following years. In 539 or 540, a cataclysmic eruption occurred, possibly in El Salvador. Summer temperatures dropped by another, whopping 2.7 degrees Celsius. Researchers think that the severe decline in temperature was the result of the volcanic material in the atmosphere creating a feedback loop. By blocking the sun's rays, temperatures declined worldwide. This caused more ocean water to freeze, leading to expanding ice sheets. These reflected even more sunlight, further cooling the planet. To make matters worse, a third great explosion happened in 547. Taken together, these effects compounded to such a severe drop in global temperatures that climatologists labeled the 6th and 7th centuries CE as the Late Antique Little Ice Age. Justinian's plague. At first, the empires of the 6th century fared a little better than the sustenance farms and small holdings elsewhere. The imperial Chinese, Byzantine, and Persian civilizations, for example, were somewhat able to store food centrally in granaries and distribute it to their hardest-hit provinces. Meanwhile, inhabitants of the Byzantine capital of Constantinople eerily marveled that they could see no shadows of our bodies at noon. But then, the Byzantine and Persian empires in particular were hit by another calamity that truly made the mid-6th century the worst time to be alive. While many people were already struggling to get by as a result of the bad harvests caused by the volcanic winter, a plague broke out in Byzantine Egypt. With a major part of the population on or over the edge of death and famine, and likely with weakened immune systems, the pestilence found a fertile breeding ground here. It spread rapidly to both the Persian heartland and the Byzantine capital. The Gothic War. At the start of the worst year ever, 536, Emperor Justinian had just launched his great offensive into Italy to reconquer the western parts of the empire which had fallen to the Goths. Volcanic winter or no, his star general Belisarius managed to eject them from Naples, and Rome before the year was out. As the Goths quickly gave way at first, perhaps the more superstitious among their ranks were frightened by the ominous portent accompanying Belisarius's landing in Italy. The Dark Ages. The early medieval era has often been described as the Dark Ages. While this terminology is fortunately no longer in use by most historians, it seems the events of 536 and the subsequent years might somewhat justify this nomenclature. As a result of several major volcanic eruptions, even contemporaries would have described the period as dark in a literal sense. Some historians do call the 6th and 7th centuries the Dark Ages, not because of any presupposed ignorance, but for a simple lack of sources, making the era a difficult period to shed academic light on. Evidently, there were clear causes for people being busy with other things than chronicling. Rather than experiencing an overall fall of civilization, they had to deal with a volcanic winter, pestilence, bad harvests, and a lot of warfare. But as we hope you gathered from this piece, we should be careful to view the entire period as one of widespread devastation. The Byzantine government somehow thought the time was right for its Gothic war, and managed to sustain the conflict for 2 decades and win it. Further south, living conditions in Arabia, and probably other places, too, likely improved. However, of all years, 536 itself does seem to have been the worst year ever, with weather distortions on every continent and global food supplies depleting within the span of a season. Despite the horrors of 536 AD, life returned to normal by the 600s. There was a decent economic recovery. European kingdoms started to smelt silver, which eventually replaced gold as the standard currency. This encouraged the emergence of a middle class. Farming and agriculture revived. It's only human to complain about the times we live in. All the same, we should be thankful not to have lived through 536 AD. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you haven't already, then don't forget to subscribe and press that like button. Also, hit the bell icon, so you could never miss new updates from us. Thank you for watching, and we will meet you in the next one.